I've been dog sitting for my daughter's Catahoula leopard. He's a really sweet dog, and his name is Link. He's named after the hero in Zelda. And Link is used to living in an apartment where it's always a little bit noisy. There's like dogs barking all over, there's always something happening. And I think because he's lived in an apartment for so long, he's just gotten really used to canceling out the noise going around him, and he doesn't ever pay attention to it. So now that he's here for a few days, it's pretty quiet here. We're kind of on the edge of town. And when I take him out in the mornings, he does not know what to do with the silence. He's on hyper alert, kind of just observing everything that is not happening around him. And the other morning I took him out and it was just dawn. Like the sun hadn't come up yet, but the sky was just starting to turn blue. And he's outside and it's just really peaceful and quiet. And then a few blocks down, a nail gun goes off. There's construction going on down the street. And so he crouches down and he looks around and something catches his eye and he looks up. And there in the sky is this silver sliver of a moon, just like bright and intense against the barely blue sky. And he looks at it and he has his tail between his legs. And then after a minute, he forgets about it and he starts to walk around the yard again. And that nail gun goes off again. And immediately he looks up at the moon and like his hackles are up and he's thinking, what is this thing going to do to me? And I thought it was so interesting because he created an association in his mind that says that the nail gun is coming from the moon. And it's so interesting because I think that we do this exact same thing. Oftentimes when people struggle with their weight, it's because they've created an association in their mind that says extra food equals pleasure. We have this idea in our head and it is as true to us as that moon was to Link, even though in reality, we probably aren't even truly getting pleasure, at least not lasting pleasure from that food. We would feel a lot better if we found other ways of making ourselves feel great. So what I would like to do, with your permission, is walk you through a really awesome protocol that lets you actually release that neuro association in your mind that says excess food or food that is not serving you, food that's not great for you, equals pleasure, and help you start to find pleasure in new ways that actually last and actually benefit you and don't make you feel guilty later and don't make you beat yourself up for falling off the wagon. So if that sounds good to you, I would love for you to play this game with me. It will only take a few minutes and it will absolutely change your life. It's really amazing what happens when we use our imagination in sort of playful ways because you actually bypass that analytical, overthinking, conscious mind and tap into your subconscious resources. That part of you that knows the things you don't know you know, and that part of you that's been creating an association between excess food making you feel good when you truly know deep down that it really doesn't, especially over time. All right, so if you're willing to play along with me, what I would like you to do is just imagine one food that you would like to feel completely in control around from now on. Perhaps it's sweets or salty things or savory things, whatever it is that just tends to call your name and you feel out of control. And I'd like you to imagine that you have that food in front of you right now. Perhaps even hold your hands out and imagine that it's there, that you could smell it, that you could taste it, that you can see the texture. Perhaps your mouth is even starting to water just thinking about it. And now I'd like you to imagine, this is kind of silly, this is where we get into the subconscious part of this game. I'd like you just to imagine that you could point somewhere in the area around you, point at where you think about that food being. It might be right in front of you, it might be just over here. Just notice where it is. And it's okay to make it up. It's okay if you don't know and you just point and make it up. All right, now what I would like you to do is look at that spot where you just pointed, as if you're imagining that that food is in that spot right now. And just become aware of the color of that food. And become aware of the texture of that food. And I'd like you to notice if you're aware of any kind of a sound. You might be surprised what comes to mind when you think about this. And if there's not a sound, that's okay, but just be aware of any kind of a sound that that food is making. You're doing well by playing along. You are reprogramming your subconscious mind. All right, now as you look at that spot where you imagine that food to be, I would like you to notice if there's any kind of a movement that you think of as you look at that spot, any kind of a movement that that food is making. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is look away from that spot and look around the room and just notice 3 objects and note them in your mind. It doesn't matter what they are. This is just pulling you back into the present moment and out of that craving. And it really can be that easy to step out of a craving. It's pretty amazing. Okay, now what I would like you to do is imagine something so disgusting and vile you would never put it in your mouth. This could be a kind of a food that you absolutely hate, or it could be some other kind of a texture. Perhaps a crawly bug or some kind of a slimy goo, just something that when you see it or when you smell it, it just makes your stomach turn. You would never put it in your mouth. And when you have an idea of what that thing is, I would like you to, again, just imagine where you would put that in your environment around you. And just imagine that you could point and look at that spot right now. Have it be someplace that you can see, even if it's back behind you, just notice where it is. Again, allowing yourself to be playful here. You don't have to do it right, but if you play along, you will change. Okay, now looking at that spot where that gross, disgusting object is, I want you to imagine the color that's associated with it. And what's the smell associated with it? Notice how just thinking about this makes you feel so yucky for just a minute, just for a minute. And now notice any kind of a movement that's associated with that gross thing over there. Okay, here's where it gets really cool. I want you to come back to the spot where you had that thing that used to entice you, that food that used to just call your name. And I want you to imagine looking at that thing and then visually tracking it with your eyes over into the spot where that gross thing is. It's important to physically do this, to physically watch it with your eyes move from one spot to the next spot. And now see it over there with that disgusting thing, taking on the colors of that thing, intermingling with the smells and the movements, completely mixing up until it's unrecognizable because it's been completely encompassed by that gross, disgusting thing. And now as you think about that thing being over there, that thing that used to entice you in the past, I want you to imagine again that if I had that in my hands, that I was right there with you and I handed it to you, how much would you want it right now? Pretty amazing, isn't it? So now what's going to happen is you're not going to look at that food. Most likely you won't look at that food and just be absolutely repulsed by it in the future, but you're going to be able to look at it and just feel completely neutral about it. And the reason is because your subconscious mind just moved it from the enticing, pleasurable category into the neutral category so that you can just feel neutral about it. I know it felt like overkill as you were going through that, but it's going to be incredibly liberating because what you're going to notice is that now when you're around that food, you might decide to have a bite or two, but you're going to realize it just doesn't do anything for you. Now, sometimes that stresses people out a little bit because they want to get that perceived pleasure that they think they used to be getting. So what I want to do is I want to give you a way to feel even more pleasure, to experience more pleasure without that food more easily and have it be more fulfilling than before. Does that sound good? All right, so what I want you to do, again, just playfully hold out your hands, and this time I want you to imagine something absolutely amazing in your hands. And we're gonna do this in a playful way. So first, I just want you to think what color it is. And that beautiful color, is it heavy or light? Is it shiny or dull? Is it sparkly? And you can make it as beautiful as you'd like. You can add sparkles or glitter, whatever seems appropriate to you. And I'd like you just to imagine making it more intense, intensely pleasurable, intensely blissful, intensely comforting, whatever it is that you want it to be. Imagine that you're holding it in your hands and it's taking on all those characteristics. And just playfully imagine the color, the size, the texture, the sounds, the movements. And when you have this, what do you know about your ability to experience pleasure? Just say that thing to yourself right now, what you know about being able to experience pleasure. Let yourself memorize that thing. And now what I'd like you to do in a moment, I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to imagine pulling this inside into the place where you need it the most. It might be your chest or your head or your stomach. On the count of 3, let's just pull it inside, just playfully, imagining that that color is about to come in and fill you with that pleasure. 1, 2, 3. And now just close your eyes and let yourself feel that color radiating into every cell. Feel that sound permeating through your body, that movement, as you say that positive, powerful thing to yourself about your ability to experience pleasure without that old food that used to tempt you. Notice how good it feels to experience bliss, experience pleasure right now. And now take a nice deep breath from low in your belly, as if you're breathing in that beautiful feeling. And with a long, slow exhale, as if you're breathing it out. With every breath, breathing it in. With every exhalation, breathing it out, so that it's actually filling the space around you, just nourishing you with peace and bliss and whatever it is that you need in this moment. And now something really cool is going to happen, because in the future, when you notice that food, either think about it or see it or smell it, when you notice that food, you're going to be immediately aware that you don't need that for pleasure anymore. You're going to be immediately aware that that was just an imposter feeling, an imposter association, just like Link with the nail gun and the moon. You're going to realize how ridiculous it was to think that that food could ever fulfill you or ever give you what you want. And you're going to realize that you are already satisfied, that you can experience that pleasure just by thinking of that color and that movement and that sound, just by taking a deep breath, as if you're breathing in satisfaction, just by looking around the room and noticing and noting 3 objects that you can see around you, bringing you back into the present moment and out of that idea that you needed something on the outside of you to make you feel better, and realizing that you are already okay and that you are already enough. I wish you an amazing day. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to follow me wherever you're watching this video. And if you think someone else would enjoy it, please share it. Have an amazing day.